Before starting this video, I want to put a disclaimer out there. I'm not trying to profit out of anyone's debt that is not ethical, empathetic, nor respectful. Today we're talking about someone's son, brother, colleague, friend, father. Today we're talking about a human being, so if you want to make any comment, please keep that on mind and be kind. I've been debating on if I should make a video on this topic or not, as One Direction is a boy band I grew up with and till this day I still listen to as a group and each member as soloists. Nonetheless, there will always be an uncomfortable theme no matter the timing. As every other fellow Directioner, I didn't think I was going to live through the passing of anyone member this early, so of course I was shocked by the sudden news. However, the reason why I'm finally filming this is because this situation creates a deeper conversation about mental health, my work field, and the thing I must bring awareness to. If you need help, don't be afraid to ask for it. Your mental health is important. Remember, I'm a Bermeo clinical psychologist, so if you need guidance, you came to the right place. I give in-person and online therapy. I'll leave my contact information on the description box as always if you need professional support. Liam Payne is another example of how fame is not as desirable as we thought, especially when it starts at such a young age, and how toxic internet culture is. To understand a little bit of the psychology behind Liam's case, whom we are talking about today, we first need to understand where he came from. Liam James Payne was born on August 29, 1993, being the third out of three siblings and the only boy. According to his parents, during his childhood, he used to be constantly sick, so he had to spend a lot of time at the doctor's office, which for a kid is already overwhelming. It generates stress and makes a child more likely to suffer from anxiety or its symptoms in the next life stages. He was also bullied at school, which encouraged him to take boxing classes. And this is a detail we need to highlight, as it already tells us he could have had issues on the self-confidence, self-love area early on his life. Passionate for singing, he joined Payne Productions at 12 years old, so he was able to showcase his talent. Then in 2008, he auditioned for the first time on the show The X Factor, but he was eliminated on the judges' houses as Simon Cowell considered he was too young. Nonetheless, he encouraged him to go back into years, which he did. In 2010, he auditioned again, not making it as a soloist, but was put in a group along with Harry Styles, Zayn Malik, Louis Tomlinson, and Niall Horan, marking the beginning of One Direction, the most popular boy band of the 2010s. Despite getting on the third place of the competition, the boys reached global success, which only a few are able to get, achieving plenty of milestones as getting tons of awards, platinum albums, millions of streams, followers, money. But with all of these perks fame brings, there are lots of challenges that may have played a huge role on Liam and his mental health. He was a victim of exploitation. One Direction became Sony Music's Psycho's modest cash cow. Of course, they were going to take everything they could out of these boys. Putting all-nighters to record, to rehearse already can take a toll on a person's mood, energy levels, increases cortisol, increases the chances of anxiety and depression, even more for a teenager, let alone a teen pop star, because aside from having to work all day long, he was managed by tons of adults telling him how to behave, how to dress, cut his hair, controlling every single step he took. Everything this boy knew was work. He even met his first public girlfriend, Daniel, there because she was a dancer on The X Factor. Everything surrounding his life was related to a career. He was not able to develop as a normal teen and discover who he was. He was treated as a machine, and for a young guy, that creates instability and a lack of identity. Plus, remember, he was under the One Direction tag. You know, One Direction's Liam, One D member Liam, Liam of One Direction, which can explain why he wasn't able to find himself after the band went on a hiatus, particularly for a boy that was bullied when he was young and didn't heal because life for him moved really fast. Being under an umbrella could have generated many doubts about himself. Imagine that after being mistreated for your peers, you are suddenly loved because you are now a member of a popular group. For him, one day probably meant the reason why people liked him, hence why he got attached to the memories with his bandmates. He probably didn't want to miss the love and admiration he always wished to get as a kid, and the rest of the members were associated to that experience. And maybe that is why also he was always talking about the boys, going to their concerts, commenting on their pictures. For many, that meant he was hanging on the other members' fame and success, but for him, it might have been the dependency he had on the tag One Direction to feel appreciated. Addictions play a huge role too. As a young person that was overworked, felt lost and lonely because he was seen as dollar signs, Liam probably felt he couldn't go to someone and ask them for help because, again, the people surrounding him were focused on numbers exclusively without taking into account his mental well-being, because for them, therapy meant losing money and losing time. On the other hand, he was kind of the leader of the group, especially during One Day's early days, and maybe that extra pressure forced him to not fully express his pain with the other members to avoid hurting them as well. And even when later on he probably leaned on them for support, that doesn't take away he had a lot of weight to carry on his teenage years alone, a key stage to build a personality which contributed to a troubled adulthood. And you will probably ask me, what about his family? He could have talked to his family, but maybe, just maybe, he didn't feel fully comprehended as his parents and sisters had a normal life and probably couldn't fully understand what he was going through even when they tried to. Or again, maybe he didn't want to make them feel worried as he was far away from home, so he decided to save his issues for himself, making life harder to navigate through. And with this discomfort, as anyone else would do, he probably looked for a coping mechanism, starting with alcohol, which he was very open with.
The problem we had in the band, and I don't blame anybody for this, I don't want to seem like I'm whining or moaning, oh my God, look at my life, whatever. But it feels to me like when we were in the band, the best way to secure us, because of how big it got, was just lock us in our rooms. And of course, what's in the room? Minibar. So at a certain point, I thought, well, I'm going to have a party for one. And that just seemed to carry on throughout many years of my life. And then you look back, how long you've been drinking and stuff, where you're like, Jesus Christ, that's a long time. Even for someone who's, you know, as young as I was. It was wild. But it was like the only way you could get frustration out in the day, or being trapped. And you know, I spoke to somebody about this, and in child development, you know, as a teen, the one thing you need is freedom to make choices and freedom to do stuff. And it was the one thing that, although we could do anything we wanted, it seemed from the outside that we were always locked in a room at night, and then it would be car, hotel room, stage, sing, locked. So it was like they pulled the dust cloth off, let us out for a minute, and then woohoo, and then it's like back underneath it, and I'm like, good.
And as sick as we know the world of celebrities can be, he might have been introduced to other substances by individuals in the industry, but he might also realize those substances made him disconnect from everything for a while, making him dependent on them to feel better. But long term, those can increase anxiety, depression, can be the root cause for personality disorders, schizophrenia-like symptoms, and more. Liam has openly talked about his mental health struggles throughout the years, so this shouldn't come as a surprise.
Is there a moment where you look back and say that was the lowest moment for me, that was the pivotal moment?
I had a few of them. I was worried how far my rock bottom was going to be. Where's rock bottom for me? And you would never have seen it. I'm very good at hiding it. No one would have ever have seen it. But rock bottom, I mean, I don't even know if I hit it yet. You know what I mean? I feel like it's like one of those little graphs you see when it's like, oh, we hit the you know,
like
the support, the market support, yeah, are we there? This is the support level, oh my God. You know, it's the same thing. So it feels like I can either make that choice now and pick my last moment as my rock at the bottom, or I can make a new one and make a whole new low. That's my choice.
And these issues may have caused him to be involved in toxic relationships, be the most public one, the one with Maya Henry, due to allegations regarding her book. May have also been the cause for erratic behaviors, as that famous fight with a fellow bandmate, which he talked about on Logan Paul's podcasts, or looking down on his members on the same interview, which he actually admitted was due to him being drunk in a dark place and he apologized for. But apologizing isn't enough for the internet. He was a target of cancel culture, especially during these last 2 years. I need to mention the Logan Paul interview again because since then people started to throw shade at him, telling him he was the worst member, that he wasn't even that good. There might have been things he maximized on that podcast, but the amount of despise he received wasn't necessary. You can hold someone accountable without attacking them. Also, around that time, people began calling him out for his song Both Ways, which is featured on LP1. They were calling him misogynistic, blaming him for sexualizing bisexual women, telling him to unalive himself, blocking him from social media and probably tweeting about it, boycotting the entire album just for one song. Seriously, it shows how the internet makes people way too entitled and offended for every single thing. The solution was to not play the song and continue with their life, block him, and maybe don't announce it to the entire world for likes and reposts. Sending hate through social media is just ridiculous. But the thing is, he might have read them and began questioning his entire artistic career and worth as an individual, affecting his identity even more. Then he took a break, as we know, and he went to rehab for a short period of time. I think it was a 100-day program, which as a psychologist, I know it is not enough. Addictions preferably require lifetime treatment to keep them accountable. But it gave him a chance to redeem himself. He apologized and everything sort of calmed down until Maya came out with a book in which she talked about his experience dating a famous man, which people speculated was Liam. Of course, the topics of this book are sensitive and by any means justifiable, but the thing is, it wasn't confirmed that the book was about Liam. It was a conclusion people jumped into without anything to back it up, but enough to keep telling the man to disappear. However, it didn't end up there. The hate continued as this year Liam went to see Louis and Niall on their solo tours, and during those concerts he was there vibing, singing, and because fans recognized him, he approached them, but created a perfect formula for haters to say he was nobody, so that he had to look for attention at their friend's concert, generating another wave of hate. But this time it got really massive. Because during those days, Maya also decided to reveal that allegedly the member who threw Liam against the wall during that infamous fight narrated on Logan Paul's podcast was Zayn. Later, she said she couldn't believe Liam would show up at their former mate's concerts because he would always talk negatively about him. She opened up about her real-life story behind her novel, stating that Liam was the toxic boyfriend she wrote about, and adding that she was a victim from harassment from Payne, allegedly. With all of these things coming out, people is starting making video compilations of Liam Payne being unlikable, one day hating Liam. They again started diminishing his contribution on the group, but this time it got to the point that they erased him from group pictures, were begging for a one-day reunion without him, leaving comments under the lines of "they could never make me like you, Liam Payne," even on his girlfriend's TikTok videos when she had nothing to do with anything. Again, telling him to disappear, to call him selfish, narcissist, abuser, and the worst stuff. And this lasted until he tragically passed on October 16th at 31 years old after falling from a balcony on the third floor of the Casa Sur Hotel in Buenos Aires, Argentina. According to authorities, prior to the incident, 911 received a call asking for help as a guest was acting violent and seemed to be under the influence of drugs and or alcohol. They also said they fear for his life as his room had a balcony and they didn't know what could happen with said man. Aside from that, there are also some people claiming to have seen Liam minutes before he passed, affirming he was walking around the lobby looking looking for someone to recognize him and someone to talk to, saying he was a part of a boy band and that's why he was so messed up, that he was reading some emails and got pretty upset, hence why he slammed his laptop on the floor. There was someone saying he passed out and started convulsing on the lobby, therefore the staff took him to his room and minutes after he fell. Now, there are many things that haven't been confirmed by the time I'm filming this and probably never will, as this is a sensitive topic that will most likely stay within their family, which I really hope it does because there's a lot involving here, including a human being's dignity. But as a psychologist, there is a hypothesis I have regarding this event, which I need to emphasize as it will lead me to the point I want to make overall. Listen, Liam already went through many difficult times during his childhood, and maybe being in one direction helped him to heal as he was finally being loved by many for a while though, because the more famous he got, the more haters came on his way as well. So he, as most famous people, had to battle with his own mind to avoid paying too much attention to the backlash, but without psychological guidance, it probably got really difficult, especially as a 17-18-year-old that is being exploited by the music industry. That's why he inclined to substances to cope, which again could have made him feel great for some time, but simultaneously enhanced other mental pathology symptoms, which I already mentioned, plus suicidal thoughts and tendencies, which can be a burden for anyone's life. As acknowledged, he went to rehab last year, but recovering from addictions is a lifetime journey that needs continuous check-ins to keep this type of patients on the right track. Even more when there is someone like Liam with resources to acquire substances whenever he wants, that has to deal with triggering factors as waves of hate every single day for being a public figure, but we don't actually know if he was still receiving that psychological aid, and even less if the people around him as his girlfriend or managers were a good support system or on the contrary were enablers. And with people facilitating his addictions plus his label and communication manager apparently dropping him and a huge number of people around the world hating on him, it is very likely that he had a relapse, which unfortunately led him to a tragic end. Now, these days there have been reports claiming Liam actually had to stay in Buenos Aires because he had some issues with his visa due to his past abuse of substances, which obligated him to take medical and psychiatric tests, and he turned out to be clean. But at the same time, the specialist investigations say he was most likely under the effect of narcotics. His family and friends have put messages in the lines of "the world was too cruel at you without even knowing you," which again, from a psychological point of view, could mean that these past weeks were emotionally draining for him to the point that he probably didn't know how else to cope but with drugs, causing a relapse. Cases like these are the reason why child labor needs to be more controlled. Even more today when there are kids being influencers since the day they are born. Putting children and teens on a work environment is not healthy because it blocks them away from having a normal and healthy development, which is important to assure they will have a stable mindset in the future. And if parents or main caregivers allow these young humans to work, the least these children can receive is psychological support as soon as possible, so they can get the tools to navigate through a different lifestyle than other kids and to guide them so they can build a strong support network that they need so they won't feel lonely. In addition, this event shows us how powerful words are. I had to repeat this all the time, but Liam was receiving an incredible amount of hate in which people were throwing shade at him from every single thing he was doing. And even when he was hurting, people didn't care because they were so focused on making him know how unlikable he was. This is what happens when people get too entitled. They think everything has to move the way they want, everyone has to act however they want, otherwise they will harass you until you break down and give up. That is what cancel culture is. Society spends so much time talking about respect, diversity, kindness, and empathy, but everything is hypocritical because whenever they have the chance to hate, they'll just do it no matter the damage they make to the other person. And the saddest thing is that in this specific specific case, it took him to die for people to finally say he was so loved and admired, when a few days ago, hours before he passed, they were canceling him. That just shows how weak morals are in the world nowadays, and again, that whatever you say, no matter the individual, has weight. So I filmed the video yesterday, and today I remembered that I forgot to add something on my script. And since Liam's passing, many people went to social media and they were saying things like, this is why bullying and cancel culture needs to stop. You need to stop spreading hate. But at the same time, the same people that are trying to bring awareness to this topic are bashing the rest of the 1D members for not posting good enough tributes to Liam. I've seen people bashing Harry Styles because he posted a picture of Liam and not with Liam. And him and Niall also were receiving a lot of hate because their messages were a little bit more produced in the sense of image, and many people were like, oh, you're so selfish, you're just thinking on your image while posting a tribute, and while saying many other insults. Also, many people were bashing Louis because even when he posted a deep message and with a picture of Liam, they were saying like, oh, if you loved him so much, like, why didn't you check on him on time, like, you're this and this and that. And to Zayn, well, they were bashing him for postponing his tour to January. They were saying, oh, you left the band and now you're acting as if you were heartbroken. And again, just they keep spreading hate while they are trying to say stop the hate. So again, that just shows again that many people are very hypocritical, because while they are trying to make people conscious about the damages hate can make, they are still hating on people, which is just a double standard. Yeah, again, weak morals, weak values. But anyway, I forgot to add that to the video. Now let's continue with it. Overall, the only conclusion I can make is that no matter the amount of fans, the amount of money and luxuries someone can get from a young age, these people's main necessities are usually, if not always, to feel loved, to feel safe, to be heard, and have a shoulder to lean on when they feel empty, so they can be psychologically, spiritually, physically healthy, and also prevent them to suffer as Liam Payne probably did. He's another call out to the world and the industry to provide norms and regulations that protect their artists' mental health, their dignity, and overall their lives.